Hi, and welcome to the Modern Persian Food Podcast. We are food bloggers,
Bita Arabian,
and Bita Nazim Kelly, and we're here to share with you the rich flavors and fresh ingredients of Persian cooking and how to incorporate them into today's modern lifestyles.
We're excited to introduce you to the flavors, tastes, and techniques we use, and also our own cultural stories and perspectives growing up in the U.S. in a Persian family. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to episode number 15. Today we're going to be talking about how to stock a Persian pantry. It's essential to have the ingredients, the hardware or equipment that you need to make it happen. And today we're going to try to break that down so that you can have what you need to start cooking Persian food on a regular basis. Hi, Bita June.
Hi there, Bita June. That's great. I think this is going to be a really helpful episode for people who are learning about Persian food and want to incorporate Persian ingredients and flavors and techniques into their everyday lives.
These days, you can pick up the phone and order something and have it appear at your doorstep. Well, cooking can also be an easy option. And part of that is having what you need to make it happen. What would you say are some of the top things that you need in a Persian pantry?
I think the most obvious thing that we need in a Persian pantry is rice. So many of the Persian dishes are based on rice. And even when you make different khoresh and other sauces, they are typically served with rice. They can also be served with bread as well. But I would say rice is probably the number one ingredient. Basmati white long grain rice. We have an episode all about how to make rice. And so you can refer back to that to get more details. But I would say that white rice is pretty much the foundation and one of your key ingredients on your essentials list.
We get a bag of rice. These days, I often will order it online.
Mm-hmm.
The Indian white, long grain, white basmati rice. It comes in like a big burlappy sack. I have like a huge, almost like mason jar thing. And I transfer it from the big bag into there. And then I can just easily scoop it out by the cupful on a daily basis. How do you store your rice in your home, in your pantry?
Those bags of rice are really big. You know, they're usually about like 20 pounds, which is actually a lot of rice. So unless you have like a neighbor or relative that you want to share some of that rice with, it does take up a lot of space. So I live in an apartment in San Francisco and we don't have a lot of space. So I have basically like a big container that seals and I keep that container in my pantry that has probably like 5 pounds worth of rice in it. Or honestly, I also sometimes split a bag with my mom or my brother because it is a lot of rice. And if I'm not cooking it all the time, it kind of like takes up a lot of space. So I just store it in a container in the pantry as well.
Next up, I would say would be to have the right spices to make the Persian food taste aromatic and wonderful and beautiful. And we have a whole episode about Persian spices that you can refer back to in episode number 2.
Yeah.
Saffron, turmeric.
And also sumac is very Persian. There's a lot of different ways that you can use sumac, like on your kebabs if you're making them, or you have a really great recipe where you roast vegetables with sumac.
My family uses cumin, and in fact, I run out of that all the time. Also, cardamom. It's mostly used in our Persian sweets, and the tea has that flavor. It's a lovely Persian spice. Rose petals and rose water are sometimes used in masa khiyar, the Persian yogurt dip, and quite often desserts have rose water and rose flavor. Mint I use in dried form all the time in a lot of Persian dishes. I use it in huge amounts. I keep it in the freezer, and then I keep the smaller amount in a smaller mason jar in my cupboard.
You know, I wanted to just point out, it's a pantry staple, salt. The salt really can bring out the flavors of the ingredients. If you don't have enough salt in a dish, it's just lacking that kick. So I would say salt is actually a really important seasoning / spice that you need in Persian cooking too. You know, people who are a little bit more conscious or have other restrictions that they have to limit the salt, you can make up for it in different ways. A lot of times like putting like lemon or something, you can kind of up the flavor.
I'm a huge saltaholic. I salt everything. And if anything, I oversalt food. And I'm a salt snob. So I have every form of salt. I probably just use the regular table salt the most in my cooking. However, I have Himalayan sea salt. To me, it's milder. I also have the flaky salt.
Yeah, I love that. The Muldan salt. It's like my favorite thing to like finish a dish with.
I like it to have a little surprise in salty sweet desserts. Limoo omani is dried lime, and in ground form, it's like a spice. I don't know if you would call limoo omani, a spice, but in the dry form, it makes things very sour. And we keep that around.
Speaking about lemon and lime specifically, the limoo omani, it adds such a punch of flavor to stews. I love adding it to khoresh de karas, which is the celery, mint, and parsley stew for that limoo. I use lemon juice when I make lubia polo, the green bean rice. You use a ton of lemon juice for when you make like salad shirazi, which is the cucumber and tomato onion salad. So I feel like lemon comes up a lot in Persian food. Pomegranate in its basic form of seeded arrows of pomegranate seeds, those are delicious on their own, but pomegranate molasses and pomegranate juice.
They also add Persian flair. I like sprinkling them on top of Persian chilled rice.
Yes. Yeah. When you talk about an essential cooking ingredient, I think that cucumber is definitely, again, in the salads, also mixed with yogurt, and also just in the middle of the fruit bowl. Also, another citrus is orange. We use the dried peel of oranges for marmalades. We also use them in different rice dishes like the jeweled rice and shirin polo, which is like a sweet rice. The candied orange peel plays a nice role in there too.
Don't forget beans and legumes.
Yes.
Highly nutritious and often used in many Persian stews and soups. Chickpeas, kidney beans, white beans. I know you really like black-eyed peas.
Black-eyed peas, yeah. I would say lentils are huge in Persian cooking.
Yeah, we have an entire layered rice dish, a lentil rice that we call adas polo. So nutritious, great to have. So it's easy to stock these non-perishable dry beans if you like cooking with dry beans. And it's also super easy to just keep them in your pantry. I have probably 3 or 4 kinds of canned beans in my pantry at any moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And beans are just a great option. You know, you can just kind of add them for some plant-based protein and just throw them into your Persian stews.
Yeah, like specifically, ghormeh sabzi has the kidney beans, and a lot of the different soups, the thicker ashes, has a ton of different kinds of beans in there. And then even like a lentil soup, like ash adas, pretty much just all lentils. Beans do play a large role into the different Persian soups.
As well as abgusht, which is the beef stew or the meat stew. My mom uses chickpeas in that. Another thing that I use quite a bit in my cooking is a can of stewed tomatoes. I try to have that in my pantry all the time. You know, any and every form. I like the fire roasted, tastes delicious sometimes.
Oh, that's great. I didn't think about adding the fire roasted tomatoes to a khoresh or a stew or something, but that sounds great. I should definitely try that. Another canned tomato product that is very common in Persian cooking is actually tomato paste. We use actually a lot of tomato paste, and when we're making the stews or a lot of the different dishes, utilize tomato paste. So that's definitely a main pantry ingredient that is shelf stable and lasts a long time.
And a cheat, if you don't have tomato paste, tomato ketchup is close to tomato paste. It will add the same thickening agent. It does have a little sugar, so it'll give a sweeter result in taste.
Right.
I also try to either keep a little tomato sauce or tomato soup in my pantry to use when I need to have some tomato flavor or thin something out. I always have vegetable broth personally. I use vegetable broth a lot in my cooking. I sometimes will boil beans in vegetable broth or add a load of it to my soups. Other people use other forms of stock.
Yeah.
What type of stock do you use?
You know, I actually use chicken stock probably the most, and I actually really enjoy making my own. So if I'm going to be cooking a chicken, or, you know, to be honest with you, sometimes when I have rotisserie chicken, I'll debone it and throw all of the bones in a pot, cover it with water, and bring it to a boil, and then simmer it for about an hour. And I actually get a really great little stock out of it. I use that a few different ways. Sometimes I will just strain it and I put it in actually zip top bags, label it, and put it in the freezer, and I lay it flat so then it kind of thaws pretty quickly. And I use that when I want to make soups. I'll store it, and so that anytime I want to make a recipe, I can just throw it into the pot and it'll melt and turn into my stew.
That sounds delicious.
Some of the herbs that we use in a lot of Persian cooking, either cooked or raw, there's parsley, cilantro, and mint, I would say are the 3 most commonly used herbs. And I just wanted to touch on fats, what fats we cook with. I think the majority of my cooking, I use vegetable oil or butter, but a lot of Persian food actually uses ghee, which is clarified butter. And there's actually like Rogan Kermanshah, the ghee that comes from Kermanshah, which is a province in Iran. And it's known for its delicious flavor. And that's from the animals that are grazing in the fields and the valleys there, that it's known for their ghee.
Interesting. I haven't even heard of that.
Oh, yeah.
So I use a lot of olive oil in my cooking. I always have a couple of different nice bottles of mild olive oil. I like a mild buttery flavor. I don't use olive oil with rice. With rice, I use vegetable oil or cooking oil.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do also use quite a bit of spray cooking oil because that's a way for me to cut down on fats in terms of healthier living. I use butter in my cooking around the holidays, but not on a daily basis.
Yeah. One last ingredient that is very Persian, we kind of touched on a little bit, but yogurt. Yogurt is a staple on the Persian table when you're eating your rich foods. There's usually just plain yogurt, also mixed into salads like the mastokhiyar that has the yogurt and cucumber and dried herbs in it.
Yeah. And then this isn't so much a specialty ingredient. You probably have it anyway, but eggs. We do have eggs.
Yeah.
In a lot of our recipes. And if you want to try to bake some Persian things, the types of flours that I have in my Persian baking recipes include rice flour, almond flour, wheat starch, and cornstarch. For sweeteners, I use regular sugar and honey. I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing that's worth noting, it's not technically an ingredient, but it's important for stocking your kitchen in order to prepare Persian meals, would be the equipment or hardware that you need to make it happen.
Yeah.
So I have a rice cooker at all times. Sometimes in different stages of my life, I've had multiple rice cookers of different sizes. At this stage, we have a small one that works just fine for us. I have a nonstick pot for making tahdig. And besides that, I mean, colanders and things to chop with. I do have a chopping device. My husband likes gifting me with kitchen gadgets. But if I have to chop, I usually just chop by hand. What do you have in terms of equipment?
You know, I actually don't use a rice cooker. I just make my rice in a little pot. But as we talked about in different episodes, a non-stick pot is your easiest way to make a great little tahdig. So a little non-stick pot that has a tight-fitting lid would be definitely an essential. Some sort of chopping equipment, like a food processor, if you're going to be making something that requires a bunch of chopping, like a kuku, or if you were going to make the ghormeh sabzi. Also, the food processor is handy if you're going to be grinding up, for example, the walnuts for fisinjun or something like that, where you need to have everything in small pieces. That's helpful. I think we would be amiss if we don't mention your famous Instapot.
Oh, yeah. I use my Instant Pot a lot.
That's helpful when you want to cook or braise meats or vegetables to get really tender.
I love the Instant Pot. I make soups in it all the time, and it's a time saver. If you haven't used an Instant Pot and you are familiar with crock pots, it's basically can take what you would make in a crock pot in 4 hours. It would reduce it down to maybe 30 minutes total.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a form of like a pressure cooker.
Yeah. I also have an air fryer, and that's the healthy cooking part of me. I often use my air fryer multiple times in a single meal. I love it.
So let's get to this week's Ask the Beats. And today's Ask the Beats actually comes from Fariba from LA. And she asks, how does saffron affect Persian food taste?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that is. Do you want to go ahead and take a stab at that as the resident expert on saffron?
I'm going to add that to my title.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I'd call myself the expert, but saffron, it's got a mildly sweet flavor. I connect the flavor to the smell. You know, that's what I think aroma means. You can kind of smell and taste it at the same time. It's so lovely. It's different than turmeric in that it is more mild. Turmeric, if you add too much, can be a little bitter. They both provide the beautiful, vibrant color of a yellowish orange. And it is floral in a good way. It's not floral the way, for example, lavender, again, can be quite strong and have like a bitter aftertaste. Saffron doesn't have that. How would you describe it?
The correlation between the way that it smells and tastes is connected. There is a correlation there. Like when you have saffron tahdig, it smells light and fresh. It does come from a flower. is from the crocus of the center of the flower. It's collected by hand. It's actually a very tedious process to get the saffron. And then the main way that we use it, we actually grind it and mix it with hot water to add to like our tahdiks or to our stews or to brush over kebabs. And it just has like a really lovely, light, floral essence to it. But you can't overpower it. You can use too much. And if you do use too much, then I think that the flavor gets a little overwhelming. The scent of it can be a little bit overwhelming. But it's a great thing to experiment. It's lovely.
So lovely. We hope that you've been inspired to stock up your kitchen and your pantry with the ingredients and equipment that you need to make Persian food happen.
Yeah, enjoy. And if you do make some delicious recipes, we'd love to see your pictures. We'd love to see what you made and hear about your thoughts and your processes and what you liked and didn't like. So hopefully we can all be eating a lot more Persian food in this new year.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bita.
Thanks, Bita Jun. Thanks, everyone. So you've been listening to Modern Persian Food with Bita and Beata. Thanks for spending time with us. If you enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling your friends or giving us a good rating on iTunes. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app or find us online at modernpersianfood.com for recipes and info that we talked about today. Thanks so much. We'd love to hear your thoughts and see you next time.